Welcome everybody to our cybersecurity fireside chat as we are in the midst of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And this is your host, Steve Rao. I'm a city council member in Morrisville and also an executive in the tech industry. And I'm honored today to be live on Radio Murchi, the Triangle Region's largest South Asian radio station, 99.9 FM, HD4, 101.9 FM, and 1490 AM. And we're also streamed in Baltimore, Philly, and Texas, Dallas, around the country. So, and for those of you joining on social media and webinar, we welcome you all to this excellent, excellent program. And what better place to have a fireside chat on cybersecurity than my good friend, Maria Thompson, who is the State Risk Officer for the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, reporting now to Secretary of Technology, Tom Paris. Before that, she was working for Secretary Eric Boyette, who is now the Department of Transportation Secretary. I'm going to give her bio real quick and welcome her. First of all, we want to thank Maria Thompson for being a dedicated veteran to the United States Marines. I've got it right this time. The best service of the armed services. Okay, one of the best. No, we want to thank her for her service to our country. And anyone listening today that's a veteran to our country, we want you to know how grateful we are. She has also been since 2015 the State Risk Officer at the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, where she oversees pretty much all security, cybersecurity for state agencies, and also responsibilities for local governments, county governments, and we're going to have that discussion today. So I could go on and on, but we're so honored to have you here to celebrate Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We have a big attendance today for this live radio program and fireside chat. We're going to do 12 minutes on the radio, everybody, and then we're going to continue for about 30 minutes after that. So Maria, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Steve. Always a pleasure. Again, you know, this being October Cyber Awareness Month is a perfect time for us to get together.
So let's just start with basic. I'm going to be with basic questions, but first of all, could you just describe to those listening today what the role of the State Risk Officer is for the state of North Carolina?
Yes, thank you. So my name, of course, is Maria Thompson, and as the State Chief Risk and Security Officer, I have a broad role to play as far as cybersecurity within the state of North Carolina. So as Steve mentioned, I work within the Department of Information Technology. My team is specifically called the Enterprise Security Risk Management Office. So when you think of a traditional security program, you think about the governance of a program. That is what my office is responsible for. So the development of statewide security policies, the establishment of relationships, liaison with our local government, building a stronger security ecosystem within the state of North Carolina is one of our primary missions. Within my office, we run the State SOC, Security Operations Center. So we always have 24/7, 365 eyes on glass to make sure that if something goes bump in the night, somebody's there to listen and to respond. We also, as I mentioned before, we manage the policy side of the house. We also have the security awareness, responsibility of security awareness, ensuring that all of our end users are aware of the current threat landscape and those best practices that they need to be taking in order to protect themselves, as well as the citizens' data. And you know, the list goes on and on. We also are deeply involved in vendor risk management, making sure that our contracts, that the vendors that we do business with within the state of North Carolina, that they meet a certain level of compliance as far as security to protect the data, because obviously we don't want our data to be with vendor partners that may not necessarily be in the right posture to maintain that level of data. So again, broad spectrum of risk and security within the state of North Carolina.
I have a number of questions, but I think I'm going to start with this. We have a number of, we're going to talk about Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We want to use this hour with you to get some tips and feedback about resources your department has to help cities and towns. But to begin for everybody today, so we have a broad array of attendees today. We have city leaders, county leaders, state agency leaders, all attending. Cybersecurity was a big concern pre-COVID, but now we're in a COVID world. Things are really topsy-turvy. So what is the advice you have today for things that we as cities, as towns, as counties, and state agencies should be looking for, should be worried about, in terms of being cyber secure? And how would you define cybersecurity? Because it's often defined in different ways.
Well, cybersecurity, I'll start with that question. Cybersecurity is very broad. It touches a lot of our IT landscape, but it also includes a lot of the things that we do that facilitates that the IT resources that we use. It could be in acquisitions. It could be within our procurement processes, within our forensics that we do, with the IT services that we provide. It's not just a core group of individuals that's responsible for cybersecurity. I think one of the key things that I'd like to express to everyone is that everyone plays a role in cybersecurity, and that it's not just your IT folks, it's not just your cybersecurity or your security professionals that are responsible for cybersecurity within your environment. It's the citizens and their data. Everyone has a role in protecting the security and privacy of their data. But your other point about the pandemic, a lot of us, whether you're state, local, or even private sector, we all had to do and deal with the same issue when COVID hit. We all had to rush to provide collaborative services for our employees as they worked from home. If you're in an academic institution, you had to come up with a plan on how to provision resources for the students to be able to connect in and continue their job. Continuity of operations was very key and on the forefront of everybody's minds. From a state perspective, we had to ensure that the infrastructure was resilient enough and robust enough to support all the concurrent connections that would be coming in back into the environment from folks that were traditionally working within our environment. Now they're working from their homes. So we had to make sure that the network was stable. But from a security perspective, we also wanted to make sure, and we had to make sure that we had visibility on where those endpoints were, and most importantly, how compliant those endpoints were before they connected to the infrastructure. Because what we didn't want to happen is we have folks getting compromised in their home environments, and then the trickle down effect is that the state network gets compromised as well. So again, having that visibility and control of those networks was very key to us. And I know that this is something similar to what every entity had to deal with, regardless of what sector that you worked in. And the schools, they were really hard hit initially with ransomware attacks. We've had 13 reported ransomware attacks since 2020. And many of those were since the pandemic hit. So being able to, provide those services that we could to assist, the government entities and the academic institutions that were impacted was key for us. And we had to surge up our cyber response forces to support, those entities that were impacted. And I can go into greater detail, Steve, if you'd like me to.
Oh, no, I think this is, that's perfect. We'll come back maybe in the town hall and the fireside chat part. So what, before we get into, examples of attacks, and I can give you one that happened in Morrisville, but what are you seeing today in terms of the kinds of cyber breaches that we are seeing? We've heard of ransomware attacks, but are there other types of things that people listening should be worried about or concerned about as they look and optimize their networks?
So I'll say this, I think that from the trends that we've seen, definitely, and I hate to keep pounding slamming my fist on the table about ransomware, but that is the key way in which we are getting compromised. But on top of that, now what we're seeing is an increase in data exfiltration. So no longer are the days that your system is just locked up and encrypted, and you choose whether you want to negotiate with the ransom, the hackers to pay the ransom, or you rebuilt your environment. Now they are exfiltrating your data and using that as another leverage, another way to force you into paying the ransomware and driving that fear. And really that's what it is, because at the end of the day, your data is already compromised, regardless of whether they've leaked it out or it's already in their hands. So that's something that I also want you all to be aware of. But data exfiltration is the next step. That's what we're seeing. But on top of that, the bad guys, what they're doing is they're shifting the way that they're doing their business, because it is a business for them. Surprisingly enough, they do have a business. There's ransomware as a service And there's also do-it-yourself ransomware. That's a new technique that the bad guys are using right now, where you can just go out and purchase your own platform, just anyone on the dark web, and launch your own ransomware attack against anything, at any infrastructure that you see fit.
Yes.
So, but the key thing is always that there is a vulnerability, for the most part, that they are taking advantage of. So patching your systems is always an issue and a problem that we struggle with, but that's primarily how they're getting in addition to, of course, phishing, which leads to ransomware, or brute force attacks, where you have weak passwords or default passwords on systems that they're taking advantage of.
We have one more minute on the radio, and then we're going to continue in our town hall, our fireside chat. It's my new term, sorry. What is the Department of Information Technology for those, and we got questions coming in. We're going to get to the questions after the radio. So how often do you recommend pen tests? Okay. What is the department? If I'm attacked and I'm a city or a county or an agency, how do I contact you, and what does the department do for me? I mean, how can you help me?
So real quickly, we've established a response force, and that is a combination of the Department of Information Technology. It's the Department of Public Safety, EM Cyber. It's our partnership with the National Guard Cyber Response Force, and also the Nickel Giza IT Strike Team, who are members of your organizations. They are subject matter experts within the local government that are trained and ready to assist us. And generally speaking, you contact the public safety emergency management is your belly button, if you will, into the government, state government, for this support. You contact us, we will make sure that we get the support to you. So we'll spin up a scoping call. We will talk about the situation, figure out what you need, where your gaps are. We will have boots on the ground. And this is something that's funded by the state out of DIT, because we want to make sure that you understand that you're not alone and that this is a team effort, and we will bring whatever resources we can to bear. We also have state contracts that are meant to be available for local government entities as well. So if there's services that you need, take a look at our procurement, our contracts that we have out there, that we can assist you in fast tracking to get you whatever services that you need. And then DIT as an organization also has ability to support you in specific services. So this is a discussion that we can have while we go through the scoping and to figure out what you need in order to get you back whole.
Okay, and okay, great. I got 2 questions coming in, but I'm going to ask them after. But we want to thank Radio Murchie for covering this. For those listening on the radio today, how do they get a hold of you? Do they just go to it.nc.gov and just reach out to you?
You can, or, as I always like to share with everyone, maria.s.thompson@nc.gov.
Great. All right. Thank you. Well, folks, we want to thank Radio Murchie for covering this live. Thank them for everything that they do. And we are going to be continuing our fireside chat. So thank you, radio. And this will be broadcast again at 4 o'clock on all the major frequencies on Sunday, October 18th at 4 o'clock. So thank you, Murchie, Radio Murchie. Now we're going to continue. So I guess I'll just chime in as we continue this conversation about DIT Cyber Awareness Month, different resources on your website, and a little bit about your symposium that you had. One question that I got recently was, are all these services for free? So if I'm attacked and I want you to come in and assess my network, is that something that you offer, or is there a fee for that?
No. So I will say this, and I'll do a caveat. Everything is subject to funding. We have been, sadly, but we have a partnership with the National Guard, and we have established a process in which it's unlike a lot of the other states. My peers in other states, they have to get their governor to do a state of emergency in order to activate their National Guard cyber resources to support. In North Carolina, we are unique in that we don't have to. We have a memorandum of agreement with them, which allows us to bring them on state active duty orders to support this specific mission. And we've also been funding a lot of these engagements. In fact, just about all of them have been funded by DIT. So your question is this free as far as the forensic support? No, yes, it is free. It is free. And as long as I can continue to get the funding and support from our state leadership, it will continue to be free, because I think that this is something that we need to have available, because we are under, we're constantly getting bombarded by these attacks, and there's no way that everyone can do it by themselves. So we definitely want to be supportive of our local government.
Okay, that's good to know. Another question that came in: how often do you recommend a pen test? PEN test?
Pen test, penetration test. Yes. So generally speaking, penetration tests, we at minimum, we always say at minimum annually. But if you have the resources and the funding to support that, you can do it as often as you think that it's necessary, depending on the risk. Again, if your environment, if you're dealing with just data that's in public nature, classified as such, then you may not need to have to do it as often. But if you have a system that's critical to your operations, that if it goes down, it sorely impacts operations. And if the data is restricted or highly restricted, meaning that it's sensitive in nature, social security numbers, PCI related, then you might want to do it more often than once a year.
Okay.
Take a risk-based approach to it.
That's good to know. Quick question. If you're attacked by a ransomware attack, do you automatically pay the ransom, or do you not pay the ransom?
So Steve, you may not see this, but I'm clutching my pearls because that's something that I do not recommend. And, my fellow teammates, my peers, and from a government perspective, we do not recommend paying the ransomware. You will hear even our FBI partners, they will state that it's a business decision, even though they also recommend not paying the ransomware. The problem with that is we understand that there's an operational need to become, whole again. But the broader issue that we're dealing with is that the more that we pay the ransomware, the more that the opportunity exists for them to come back at us, and that they will continue to come, to attack us, because they know that there's money to be had. And so we've seen in the last couple of years a huge increase in ransomware attacks, primarily because organizations are paying the ransomware. And we've also seen in some cases too that some of the cyber insurance companies out there are recommending organizations to pay the ransom, to negotiate it as a faster way to get back, to be operationally sound. However, again, that just creates that situation where we are constantly in the cycle of cyber attacks. So we need to take a strong stance and say no to ransomware.
Okay, and if you are, like you said earlier, the state can call you and you can bring in someone to look at that. Yes,
absolutely. If you're impacted by ransomware, you get a hold of us. We will assist you. We will make sure that your environment is recovered using best practices. In some cases, that may be a scorched earth effect, which is, where we have to start from scratch. But if you have any backups, and please, and I know this is something that we'll probably cover later, if you have solid backups that were not impacted, that makes it that much easier. But your environment will be rebuilt, and it will be rebuilt, hardened, in a better position than it was before. So that is the goal, to leave you not just operationally sound, but in a more secure posture.
For our state agencies, or governments, or cities, or counties, do you recommend a security assessment every year, once a quarter? I mean, how do you make sure that you're constantly? I'm a business development guy and an elected official, so I don't really understand, like, what are the technical aspects of a security assessment that you think are important for us as we assess our networks?
So from a state perspective, our policies, we have what's called a continuous monitoring plan. And the continuous monitoring plan requires that every state agency conducts a security assessment at minimum annually. And that is part of our reporting requirements. On top of that, though, as part of our continuous monitoring plan, it's not just a one-time situation where you have either a third party or you do your own self-assessment. Throughout that year, throughout that period, you're assessing your network through your vulnerability scans. We run vulnerability scans. Every device is touched at least once every 7 days. So we know what that posture of those endpoints are. So you're running scans, you have eyes on glass, you're monitoring your system's compliance levels to make sure that patches are being applied. You have what's called, one of the tools that we use has a solution that's part of it that's called a vulnerability priority rating. So it's not just the CVSS codes anymore that we deal with that says, hey, this is a critical vulnerability. It's coupled with that, plus the fact that is there a known compromise in the wild? So that, can escalate a missing patch or a patch that's been identified, or a vulnerability that's been identified, to a higher rating, because not only is there a vulnerability, but there's a known exploit in the wild. So, those are the types of things that we use to prioritize how we do patches, but you have to have a continuous monitoring plan that does include a third-party assessment, another pair of eyes coming into your environment at least annually to see, how your posture is, taking a look at your policies and procedures, making sure that you do have policies and that you're following them, and that you have procedures on how to meet those requirements. So it's not just, again, a one and done. You have to have a continual cycle of how you are assessing your environment and making those changes and optimizing and improving over time and building your security maturity level.
Great. And I think that, as you said, there could be contracts that you have for security assessments with other vendors that could come in and help a city or they could go and find a vendor themselves, right? So those are
absolutely.
Options. They can leverage the state as a partner to say, do we have a vendor that can do it? And if you're listening to this and you're interested in talking, you're a company that's in cybersecurity or an entrepreneur, you should reach out to Maria to let her know what you do. But you already have an array of partners as part of the state toolkit that can help towns, governments, agencies do that, right?
Yes, we have a contract called the 918A, security assessment contract, 918A, and I did not name that, by the way. That's just a procurement title. And what that is a list of pre-vetted vendors that have met certain requirements. So this contract is for security assessments. It can be used for consulting, training, those types of things. Anything outside of hardware and software purchases, this, as long as it's tied to a security requirement, the vendors on those contracts can provide those services. So it could be assessing your cloud environment or your on-prem environment. And we created that contract primarily because we wanted to fast track the ability for organizations, for agencies to be able to get these services quicker than going through the long RFP process.
Oh, that's great. That's really good. So this is really useful information we're getting here. We're going to get into the DIT in a few minutes, but we have another question that's sort of a piggyback to that. It says, what if your local government or municipal government doesn't have budget for a pen test, a penetration test, and security assessments? I think you pretty much answered that. We could then go to you all and see, how you can help.
So I'll say this, generally speaking, and I just want to clarify, generally speaking, we support local government when they're in need. If there is a cyber incident, we will step in and we will support them. Currently, we are engaged, and this is another DIT funded initiative. We are engaged from a proactive standpoint in doing assessments on the county infrastructure. And one of the reasons why we focused on the county infrastructure is because we have this little thing that's coming up next month called the elections. And we wanted to make sure that the elections infrastructure, that it was as sound as possible, and that we identified what those issues were and kind of helped those county representatives to increase their cyber posture over time. Also to prioritize what are those critical things that they should be focusing on that could potentially cause them issues. So we focused on them primarily, but the National Guard team is a very, very cost-effective third party, if you will, that can support you. So depending on your budget, that's something that we can discuss, because they are definitely a lot more cost-effective than maybe going out to a third-party vendor to do a pen test. So contact me, we can talk through this and see exactly what we're working with and the scope of the situation and the scope of the penetration test that you're looking for. And maybe we can adjust and find some way to support you.
Another question came in, I didn't really understand. It said, what is the contact info in the case of an incident?
Right, so one of the things we've tried to do is to streamline the process. When there's an incident, with our partnership with Department of Public Safety and their emergency management, there's a gentleman called Tom McGrath. And Tom McGrath is the lead for EM Cyber. He is the single point into state government for local government. If a state agency gets impacted, they contact directly to my office. If a local government gets impacted, they contact directly into DPS Cyber. Now, that is not to say that if you contact me, it doesn't matter, because all of us, we work as a team. And the first thing that happens as soon as we hear of any incident, we spin up a call between all of us, which is the National Guard, the strike team, myself and my team and DPS, and we start working through that process. So there's multiple ways that you can skin this cat, if you will, but the primary and direct source is through DPS EM Cyber.
Okay, I mean, that's really helpful to know. Now, talk to us a little bit about, so recently you had this, I attended a little bit of it. It was the beginning, the kickoff Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Your department, the Department of Information Technology, had a symposium, and you had panelists and experts. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that came about during that. For those of us who missed it, maybe we can go back and look at the recordings and things like that.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, Steve. So one of the things that we do every year and during this month of October is we host what's called a cyber symposium. So this year, for the first time ever, because of the pandemic, we did this virtually. Wasn't perfect, but I think we did our best, and we were very pleased with the amount of registration registrants that we had. We had over 500, close to 600 registrants for this, and we had speakers from our private sector partners that were industry leaders on different cyber areas, if you will, talking about the evolution of ransomware. We had our not public safety, but our first responder teams from 911. We had our communications team, ESF2 folks that talked about all the threats that we have to look at when we're thinking about our 911 systems, when we're thinking about our radio systems that we use during any kind of crisis that's occurring, and how they can be compromised and how we can secure them through encryption and various means. We also talked about business continuity and how to continue to build on your business continuity plans, your COOP plans, especially leveraging what you've learned during this pandemic to increase and to continue to optimize those and not let the lessons learned go to waste. It just various areas. And we also hosted a TTX, a tabletop exercise led by our National Guardsmen on how to recover from a ransomware and just different scenarios on what steps to take and so on and so forth. So we plan on having more of those, especially the tabletop exercises, because we want to get to a point where everyone within the state, our local government, our cities, that they know through, let's call it muscle memory, if something happens, what's your next step and who do you call and what are the things to look out for and how to recover from this and so on and so forth. We wanted to get to a point of muscle memory. So we will continue to have these tabletop exercises to kind of keep us, keep cyber on the forefront of our minds and how to recover from different cyber incidents that they occur.
Okay, and that's a great follow-up. There's so many issues on that website. So for those of you listening, you can just go to it.nc.gov and type in cybersecurity, and is that where they go to?
Yes, under our page, there is on the cybersecurity side of it.nc.gov, we've recorded majority of the sessions. I think the TTX was probably the only one that did not get recorded, only because of the length of it was 4 hours. But all the other sessions are there, from the governor's opening remarks to the majority of the breakout sessions. So please go and take a look at them and provide your feedback. And we hope to next year make this even bigger than it was this year. So we do want to eventually open it up to where our citizens can participate and learn from some of the industry leaders that are out there, and not just primarily focusing on state and local and academic institutions within North Carolina.
And I'd like to work with you. Maybe next year I can work with you as a friend, just to help get more cities there, because I'm so passionate about how we can get more governments better connected with DIT. Not that you're not doing it, but it's just more people aware of about that, to just coming to legal municipalities. I brought you in the Triangle J. We should do it again. Just letting all these governments know that you're there. So I think that would be great.
Absolutely,
Now,
appreciate it.
under the resources section, we could spend an hour going through all the different things. So I've been in my newsletter, I've been doing cybersecurity tips every week. So I'm going to talk about one that I found to be very interesting, Cyber 211. So talk to us a little bit about what that is in terms of the number you can call.
Yes, so I'm really excited about this. This is a new initiative within North Carolina, and we are literally a handful of states that's been picked to be part of this cybercrime hotline. So the 211 has partnered with an organization called the Cybercrime Network, and they are funded by Department of Homeland Security. And the intent is to have a citizen-facing support mechanism, if you will, for cybercrime. We understand that there are a lot of citizens within North Carolina that don't have a voice, that even though we're able to capture some metrics through the FBI's IC3 report on all the various cybercrime activities, and we've lost, millions of dollars this year, it's only scratching the surface. And we're not hearing about those lonely heart scams. Those elderly folks are citizens, are residents of North Carolina that are being scammed out of their money on a day-to-day basis. And they have no one to call that can help them, to talk them through the steps of how to recover or what things that they need to do to protect themselves in the future. So the 211 partnered with the Cybercrime Hotline or the Cybercrime Network to create this Cybercrime Hotline. Our citizens now have the ability to call 211, and they will have the opportunity to speak with a seasoned, trained individual that can walk them through the steps of what they need to do in order to protect themselves or to potentially, in some cases, recover some of those funding. So it's not just, it's small businesses, it's all those folks within North Carolina that have no IT cyber resource. They can now call the 211 cyber hotline and be guided through the different steps. If they need to contact the FBI, they will help them to direct them to the FBI, help them fill out the reports that need to happen. And here's another key thing. They actually will follow up after the fact. So it's not just a one and done that you are left on your own. Here's some information. Here's a website to go to, have at it. They will actually contact you after to see if the information that they gave you was sufficient and helped you, and if there's anything else that you need. So there is a closing of the loop with this team. And this was made available August 24th is when they went live. So please get this word out to the citizens of North Carolina that the 211 is now there to support them with their cybercrime needs.
Oh, that's great. Great work, team. I mean, this is wonderful. I want to thank Governor Cooper, the Secretary, all the leaders of DIT for helping keep our state
Absolutely,
safe.
absolutely.
Also the General Assembly. I always get worried about the state Senate and House being in session and getting hit by a cyber attack, and then you can't make law, completely go dark, right? Which is, we need to make sure that legislature is doing that as well. And the community colleges and the school systems. I mean, you could just start thinking all the scenarios.
Yes, absolutely.
The other one that we mentioned was phishing, which is, basically, we got about 10 more minutes. Phishing is just clicking an email and, you see it, you click it, corrupts your network, or it could be, you get a suspicious email that says, give me your password, whether it's, and you do that, right? So you just have to make sure there's trainings available that would train our employees or, staff on how to comb through emails and navigate through that, right?
Yes, educating your end users it sounds simple, but there's so many ways that you can do that, there are within North Carolina, what we're doing. Here's some of the tips that I would recommend that you think about doing within your organization with your end users. Simple things such as screensavers. We push out on a quarterly basis just different themes with our screensavers to our end users that reminds them on different things. So right now the theme is obviously telework. So things like remember to use a VPN, make sure that you're changing your password on your home environment, things like how to protect your home networks because they're working from home now. These are different small changes that you can make to your training regimen, if you will, to get, to educate even more. And also continue to do those things that you were doing before the pandemic hit. So if you are running phishing exercises, continue to run those phishing exercises, because you need to make sure that they are constantly thinking about the threats that are out there. Phishing is the number one way in which that they are getting into our networks, bar none. It's phishing because it's very simple. And for some reason, people click. They like to click. And we want to educate folks that they need to stop, really. Stop, think. I am very paranoid when it comes to my email. And anyone can get phished and anyone can fall victim to it. But you have to take a sort of a paranoid mind and not necessarily think, well, my job requires I need to get these emails out. They are relying, they meaning the bad guys, are relying on the fact that you don't have the time, that that we're all rushed, that we have a mission. And so we're going to quickly scan through these things. And then phishing is also through your phones. A lot of people think that you can only be phished through or social engineered through your email. I know a lot of you out there have received text messages with links. And then what happens is you use your your phone, and you also connect back into your corporate network. So again, you have to think about all these things and ways in which that they're using to compromise our work network through our home lives.
Wow. Yeah. Like building the human firewall. And by the way, we want to thank another special, he's my partner on another radio show I commentate on, Gary Jones. And I want to thank Gary Jones. He's with Get With The Program with Gary Jones. Great show. So Gary, thank you for being here. It's weird when you have a radio host coming as an attendee to learn about cybersecurity. But Gary, relax. We got a few more minutes left, and he and I are going to be recording later tonight. The spring cleaning, I saw that, which, is that just cleaning your networks, making sure you are just going through your devices and making sure that's.
Yeah, it's another way of packaging cyber hygiene, doing those things, those best practices that we need to do. And I do want to make a plug for a new site that we're going to be launching soon, primarily for students and teachers, because we understand, again, with the increase in ransomware and cyber issues that are occurring during this pandemic, that the students are being targeted and the school networks are being targeted. So we want to get them as educated as possible on just the various things that they need to do to ensure that they are protected. So we're going to be launching a area within our website that is focused primarily on that. And the next thing coming would be a citizen-focused one, because we want to make sure that we take this whole of state approach to cyber. And that's what we've done in the past few years, is focus on not just state agencies, and we've slowly branched into local government, but then we're moving into the citizen-facing piece of that, because we want everyone within the state of North Carolina to be as knowledgeable and protected as possible. We want to make ourselves a hard state so that they come to North Carolina and they can bang at the door, but they decide that it's easier to move on to somewhere else because, we're not a low-hanging fruit.
Yes, and I think that, so governments, but also businesses, citizens, just anyone out there.
Whole of state, yes.
Yeah, and also make sure, one of my friends told me, if you get on an unsecure network, don't start accessing your financial data and everything like that. So just make sure you're doing that on a secure network. Otherwise,
stop, and business email compromises is another thing that we haven't talked about. That's another way in which they're diverting your hard-earned cash out of your infrastructure and into their hands by just sending you a simple email. It's not even a phishing email per se. It's an email saying, hey, are you at your desk? Can you, make this account change? And generally speaking, if people are in such a rush, they will make those changes to their account, the account information, sometimes not even understanding that all they have to do is pick up the phone and call that, the person on the other end that they think the email is coming from, and ask, did you request this account change? And so they make this change, and then the money is diverted away from your infrastructure, your funding, your projects, into their hands. And if it's not reported fast enough, not even the FBI is able to recover a lot of that money. So you can lose all that money for good. But if that does happen to you, report it as soon as possible, because the sooner that you report it, the sooner the FBI and other, entities that are able to claw that money back are able to take some action.
Yeah, I mean, it's just final question before we just get parting thoughts. There's going to be hundreds of millions of devices connected to the Internet of Things. We're dealing with, in Morrisville, we have a great smart city initiative going on, open data, sensors, just connecting to our devices. So we've talked a lot about networks, but also devices have to be secure, right? So in addition to everything we've talked about, if I'm having a smart city initiative, don't I have to make sure that I'm taking cybersecurity measures to make sure these devices are secure? So somebody can't just attack my
Absolutely,
device. My sensor.
absolutely.
Right.
If it's connected to the internet, if anything that has, if it's internet facing or anything of those that, and then generally speaking, a lot of people are not familiar, or they don't think about the impacts of these small things that we connect, these IoT devices that we think are just dumb devices connected to the network, but they can be used to launch attacks like the Mirai botnet attack that we had to deal with a couple of years ago. Think about those things. If your vendor that you're working with is not able to clearly articulate their ability to support security of those devices or guide you in implementing those in a secure way, do not do business with them, because you're going to end up having to hold, you're going to be left holding the bag and trying to figure out how do you now put a fortress around these devices that you're connecting to your infrastructure. Security has to be built in. I know a lot of you have heard that before. It has to be foundational in any IT projects that you deliver on your services, because if not, then it is a potential risk at some point.
Wow. I mean, this is so much. Are there any, you've given us so much information as we wrap up. Are there any parting thoughts you want to share with our audience? And if there's any other questions, please ask them now. We'll be bringing Maria back maybe in a few months, but hopefully in person. I'd like to host an event in person. Hopefully we'll do that. I love seeing you, but I prefer seeing you in person, of course, with everyone. Are there any parting words of wisdom to any of us right now that you'd like to say?
I think the one thing that I want all of you to take away with today, to leave with today, is that you are not alone. And if you've heard me speak before, this is something that I keep stressing. You are not alone. When the state says we've taken a whole of state approach to cyber, that means we're here as a resource. We need to realize that we cannot continue to try to handle and manage all of our situation by ourselves. We need to share more. Whenever there's an incident, whenever there's IOCs involved, indicators of compromise involved, share that with the state so that we can push it out to the other entities that could potentially be compromised or prevent them from being compromised. So information, share more. Look at everyone as a resource. Tap into those resources. Don't think that you have to struggle on your own. Contact the state. We will, if we can't help, we'll find someone that can help you. But it is a team effort. And that's the key thing is cyber, and the attacks are coming at us. We have to take a team approach to this.
Well, this has been great. And we want to thank you for all that you do for the state, your service to our country in the Marines, but now your service to the state of North Carolina, along with all of your colleagues. Convey to them my gratitude, our gratitude to Secretary Parrish, all of my friends over there, John Minshew, John Corellis. I know so many of them. They do a great job. They work so hard. And I want to thank Governor Cooper for assembling a great team to keep us safe, secure, and also to grow technology. The other thing I'll remind is that Attorney General Stein has talked about this issue in terms of scams and cyber attacks. Secretary of State Elaine Marshall. So it's not just a technology issue. It cross-pollinates to the different council and state offices as well, which we didn't really get into. But you guys are sort of the agency that can help them. So we want to thank you. You can go to it.nc.gov. And my closing message is three. Number one, you'll see my backdrop. Town of Morrisville, we got ranked 10th most livable city in the state, in the country by Money Magazine. So we're really excited about that. We opened up a new greenway yesterday, Crabtree Creek Greenway. And just remember that voting has started. So October 15th to 31st, you can vote early, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. until the evening. and then Saturday from 8 to 1 and Sunday from 1 to 6. So you could just go to Wake County's website to find your early, I think it's wakeup.com to find your, the Wake County Board of Elections to find your polling site. The other thing I just want to mention, and Maria, I'll let you go, but really important for people to understand, the census has been moved to today. So the Supreme Court has upheld President Trump's decision to push it back 2 weeks. So there most likely will be an undercount, but it's so critically important. If you hear this message tonight, go fill out the census, because it's going to affect federal money coming in for our schools, for our infrastructure, for our congressional representation, for our legislative representation. So I just had to throw that out there. Sorry to bore you, Maria. I know you, but I like to just come in and give those quick updates. So early voting, get out there and vote, get in some necessary trouble. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but vote, because people have fought and died for that right. And also the census ending. And we're going to continue to do more of these fireside chats. So if you have recommendations, I'm going to do more technology talks. So we've had John Chambers come and talk about surviving and thriving in the COVID economy. We're going to reach out to other executives. We're going to talk about Internet of Things and smart cities and working with NC Riot. So if you have ideas, please send them to me, and my tech crew and my team will work on bringing them up. And you can go to steverao.com to get my newsletter and follow me on Twitter. So be safe out there. Thank you so much. Maria, have a great evening. It's beautiful out there.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Hopefully we can see each other soon, and be safe, because
Cyber safe.
Be cyber safe, but also we had the largest increase of COVID cases since August 5th, and our numbers are back up around 6.6%. So this is something that concerns all of us. So it's easy to relax, but be careful, all of us, because it's not going away anytime soon. So thank you, Maria. Have a great day.
Thank you, Steve.
Folks. Thanks for joining us. If you have any other questions, you can email me. I'll get a hold of Maria. And thank you so much.